Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I wanted to talk about tomatoes, what I'm growing this year and which ones I'm liking best. So every year I grow the Amish paste and they do so for me. Usually I'm starting them from seed. So this year, aside from growing my Amish paste from seed, which I do have some, they're just not ripe yet. I don't have any ripe ones yet. I did go ahead and purchase a few different starts, two from a local lady who just has the tomato growing thing down great, especially for our area, is wonderful. But I know she does use heat and light and I think greenhouse inside greenhouse kind of thing as well. But it's great because I have a great resource. She does everything organically where I can get some tomato starts that I know how they're grown. And from her I got the big boy tomatoes and the Rio Grande Roma type tomatoes. And so I've been pretty happy with both of these. The thing I like about this particular Roma that I prefer over the Amish paste is that the tomato stays pretty uniform in size and shape, and it likes to grow in clusters, and this plant stays small, so it is a heavy producer for a smaller plant rather than a plant that just gets huge and just gives you a few tomatoes. And so this has been really good for that. So for having a tomato for sauces, this one's working great for us, and so it's one that I would recommend. Some people really like the Amish paste, and I've seen where some people say their Amish paste, I notice that they'll just give kind of all different sizes and shapes of tomatoes and you never know what to expect. I still think it's a great tomato, a great paste tomato, but I'm thinking the Rio Grande is going to work better for us, so I'm definitely going to be saving seeds off this, as well as the big boy tomato. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I thought the name Big Boy meant that the tomatoes were going to be bigger. Not that I care, I actually prefer tomatoes this size, but the plant in and of itself is huge. It just gets monstrous. It is clear to the top of our greenhouse, and however, it's giving us a lot of tomatoes, and that makes me pretty happy. And it's a great tasting tomato and just working really good for us. So I actually combine both of these together for making the sauces. I think it's a really good combination, and for dehydrating up like this. This is where I just process them up into a liquid in the blender, and then I put them on the dehydrator, and then I just, so it's basically like a fruit leather, and then I just break it up into flakes. And this works wonderful for making sauces and ketchup even. Typically what I'll do is combine it with like a jar of home canned tomatoes and then put some of these in to thicken it up. And it just works really good. But these could make a great sauce all on its own. Now, I do have a video that I did last year on how I do the tomato flakes, and I'll go ahead and link to that right up here. Now, another tomato I tried, this is one of the ones I bought at the homesteading fair. I have tried growing this tomato before and it did not do well for me. I think I got one ripe tomato. It only gave me a few tomatoes. I had a few plants too, and they just didn't do really good. So I thought, well, when I saw this at the homesteading fair, I really wanted to try it again. This one is it's the Italian tomato. I always forget the name of it. Castelluto something. I'll go ahead. I should have looked up the name before I got on here. I'll go ahead and put the name right here so you'll know what it is. It's kind of a cool looking tomato, but as with before when I started from seed, I was hoping maybe this time I'd do better since I'm getting one that had already been started, a good healthy plant. But still, I'm only getting just little tiny tomatoes, and it's not giving me very many tomatoes. The plant stays small, which is fine with me because we have such a compact area to grow things in. I prefer having smaller plants, but if they're going to be smaller, they better be heavy producers. Now, I don't mind having one really big plant that takes up quite a bit of the greenhouse space as long as it's giving me a lot of fruit. And that's what this one's doing. So I think I'll stick with each year growing one of these and then doing more of the Rio Grande, because I only got one of these this year. I want to have a few of these plants next year, but just one of the big boy, because it does take up a lot of room. But thankfully it gives me a lot of tomatoes. But this one, personally, I do not recommend, but maybe for you and your area it may grow better. Just so you know, if you're new to my channel, I don't talk about zones a lot because I know zone refers to hardiness, but I still think it can be a poor thing to go by alone to figure out if something's going to grow well in your area. Because keep in mind, we are in zone 8B, which happens to be the same zone as Danny and Wanda from Deep South Homestead. Yet we are in the Pacific Northwest on the peninsula of Washington State. We have very cool weather all year round. We've only had a couple of hot days this summer, and we have a very short growing season. But maybe you live in an area where you get less rain, more sun, and a warmer climate. These may do better for you. For me personally, my tomatoes always do best in the greenhouse. Now my friend who I bought these starts from, she says her tomatoes, she starts them in a greenhouse, or I think she starts them inside and then grows them to a certain size in the greenhouse and then moves them outside, and they do well for her. But every time I put mine outside, they'll still grow, but they just don't do great. They don't give me a lot of tomatoes. The only one that's really done that for me was the blueberry cherry tomato. It was a heavy producer. It grew outside the greenhouse. It was heavy, laden down with tomatoes. The sad thing was I didn't like the flavor. They were beautiful tomato, but I wasn't crazy about the flavor. Now my favorite tomato for this year is this one here, and it's the black Japanese one. This was the other one that we bought at the homesteading fair, and this one is certainly a winner. It's a beautiful tomato when it's sliced. It has a wonderful flavor. This one I'm not mixing in with making sauces and stuff because I like the flavor and color of it so much. This is just for eating pretty much raw, used in salad. I like to eat it just straight with a little bit of homemade seasoned salt, or even some feta cheese. I love feta cheese with this tomato, or even putting on top of some noodles with some hot peppers and stuff like that. They're so good. So what I'm going to do is, I do have this picture here showing a plate of the tomatoes, but I'm going to go ahead and slice into this one so you can see what it looks like. And I will be these are a couple of the bigger ones. They don't get huge. Again, I don't care. I tend to like this size tomato. They just seem to be perfect size for us. And anyway, I'll definitely be saving seeds from that. And I'll probably talk about that in a different video on how I plan on saving the seeds. So let me get to slicing this tomato so you can see what it looks like. So as you can see, it's just very dark. It's kind of red, green, brown. The colors sort of fade into each other. But anyway, I just think it's a beautiful tomato, very tasty, and I highly recommend this one. Now let's go ahead and slice into one of the Romas here. This is the Rio Grande. So you can see how great that is for a paste tomato. So your paste tomatoes are going to have a lot of flesh on the inside of them with not so much of the seed, and they're not as juicy. They tend to be drier. That's why they make a great sauce or paste tomato. Okay, and now let's slice into one of these big boy tomatoes. Just a lovely red. And see how beautiful that is? I just think it's a really great tomato, so I'm really happy with this. Okay, and so while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and slice into one of these little bitty Italian tomatoes so you can see. They're still a very cool looking tomato. If I had more more room to spare, I would keep trying these to see if I could get more out of them. All right, and before I finish up this tomato video, I want to show you again, here are the dehydrated tomatoes I've done so far this year. And I have more than this, but here is one of the jars. And again, these ones are the big boy, the ones here, these nice, real smooth round ones, and the Rio Grande paste tomatoes or Roma tomatoes that I'm using for these. So just like I do with the tomato flakes. I just kind of mix it all together, and what I do with these, if anyone's wondering, I like to throw these into anything from casseroles to soups. They're really good in homemade mac and cheese, you know, especially if you cook them in with your sauce first when you're making your sauce. I do have a video out on homemade mac and cheese. I don't remember if I used the tomatoes in that one, but I did use a few other things that you may find interesting, and I'll go ahead and post that link right up here so you can see how I make the sauce. So if I'm going to do that, when I do that, I put the tomatoes in with the sauce as I'm cooking it so they can rehydrate a little bit while they're in there. And they're really good in the homemade mac and cheese, and as well as any other kind of casseroles or dishes like that, soups. I even really like them in omelets. They're real good like that. So you put them in with your egg. If you're adding milk or water to the egg, mix it in, put your tomatoes in there and let it sit for a little bit so they can rehydrate some before you cook the eggs. So that's just a few of the ways I use the dehydrated tomatoes. And I had some people asking about wanting to see more how I use the dehydrated foods. I do have quite a few videos out showing me using different dehydrated foods from ones that I dehydrate myself, as well as the ones I buy from, say, Mother Earth products or even Honeyville. And you can check those out, but be watching down the road. Mostly in the winter and fall is when you'll see me doing more cooking related videos, and I will definitely be showing how I use the different things from the snow peas, the green beans. I've dehydrated some onions and tomatoes and carrots and different things like that. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new and just some tomatoes to consider for next year when you decide to put in your garden. All right, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.